Hello. I believe that we are live. Let me double check that it is all good on the group. I think it is. So, welcome if you're joining me live and it is your first time joining me live here. I'm Dr. Alex. I help women heal from chronic symptoms, chronic pain that have been through trauma. That trauma could be in adulthood, in childhood, and take different shapes, sizes, and forms. And on today's live, today was a very last minute live. I was just meeting with a client and she had to reschedule at the last second. And if you hear those sirens, I am in New York City, so that's what that is. But my client had to reschedule last minute, and I have this weird pocket of time before my next call, and I thought that this would be the perfect time to go live. And it looks like everything is up and running. So today what I want to talk about are the components that are required to be addressed when it comes to healing. So when we have chronic physical pain or physical symptomology or emotional symptomology, these symptoms we need to reframe these symptoms as information instead of something being wrong with us. So a lot of the women that I work with, and I work with more intimately and on a weekly basis and going through deeper trainings in somatic healing, there's a core belief that something's wrong with them, that something's broken, and this is perpetuated by the evidence that they have in their physical experience of them having a diagnosis or them having chronic pain or an MRI or an X-ray that says arthritis or fusion or degeneration or disc bulges, or I have fibromyalgia, or I have POTS, or I have all of these different symptoms, even several autoimmune diseases like lupus, like AS, and really when you look at all of these types of diagnoses, the medical system is not able to get you better, right? If it were able to get you better, you probably wouldn't be on this live, you wouldn't be in this group, you wouldn't have engaged with my material, and you wouldn't be seeking answers. If you're seeking more answers for a certain problem, that means that whatever you're currently doing is ineffective. And that's nobody's fault. That's just the way. I have this heater here that I'm going to turn off. That's nobody's fault. That's the way the cookie crumbles, so to speak, and that's the way the medical system is designed, and it is designed to help very particular conditions. But if you have conditions in this field, even some anxiety and depression, a lot of the times traditional methods aren't effective. Now sometimes they are, and when they are, I don't want to dismiss or neglect that, and those patients are sticking with those modalities, with those treatments. But when they're not effective, and when we've been doomed to a diagnosis, like, oh, well, you're just always going to be this way, well, you're just always going to be this way, that there's an inherent misunderstanding in what's happening in the body. And when we're spoken to that way by a physician, by a figure of authority, we of course internalize the belief that I'm broken, that something's wrong with me. And a lot of the times this belief, I'm broken or something is wrong with me, came from an earlier point in our life, from unprocessed trauma. So it's like the first portal of shame that enters our system, that enters our psyche, that enters our spirit. So shame is the belief that I'm broken, something's wrong with me. So a lot of times this happens if there's been abuse, if there's been trauma, if there's been neglect. But sometimes this can happen when there wasn't malicious or nefarious intent, but rather there was something that was misconstrued as a child, like a parent was working really hard to provide for the family and wasn't around as much, and the parent was still doing their best, but the child internalized that as something's wrong with me, mom or dad's not around. Now that's different than actual complex or big T trauma, but that's a conversation for a different time. But regardless, this underlying belief that is not true is that something's wrong with me or I'm broken, right? And then we believe this even more and even more strongly because of the pain or the dizziness or the anxiety or the lack of results or by figures of authority, especially in medicine, really perpetuating this, whether this is intentionally or unintentionally. And it's really not until we address this deeper belief that we have any shot at getting better. Because this belief in and of itself is going to keep our nervous system on a state of high alert. It's going to keep our nervous system on a state of feeling like there's a problem, there's a problem, there's a problem. And I talk more intimately about this and what to do about this in my program and individual protocols with my clients. But just the knowingness that your nervous system controls everything, and if you've watched my webinar, you know that, and there is no healing chronic symptomology without addressing the nervous system. Like, it's impossible. And the medical system is designed to treat the body as individualistic parts, right? Like if it's a car, instead of looking at why the whole car isn't working, they just look at the tire pressure, or they just look at the air filter, or they just look at the transmission. Like, they look at these individual parts, but when we look at the whole system, there has to be some greater chain of command that's connecting everything. And the medical system is not set up that way. Another example that I like to use is if your electrical wiring system in your household is faulty, and then you go and you change a light bulb and it doesn't work, and then you change the light bulb again and it doesn't work, and you try with another brand, third time's the charm, still doesn't work. Nothing's wrong with the light bulb. The issue is with the electrical wiring system itself. So that's our nervous system, and that's our body. And so when we just try to fix the dizziness or the nausea just by looking at the brain, or just by looking at the gut, or just by looking at the tissue in your spine if you have low back pain, these are still looking at the light bulb. You're not looking at the electrical wiring system, and the medical system is not set up in a way to look at the electrical wiring system. Even a neurologist, it looks for a tumor in your brain. It looks for a slit in a nerve. It looks for structure. The entire medical system is founded on a masculine paradigm that is just structure equals function. And to a degree, of course, structure contributes to function, but there's no accountment for what's happening within that structure. So if you have a structure malformation, like a tumor in your brain, the actual structure and the shape is now being compromised, so that's going to affect things negatively, right? So there is a time and a place for structure. Or if your blood vessel is completely collapsing and you're having a clot, the structure is now compromised to a point that it's becoming life or death. And so there is a time and a place for that, but it's negligent to the other side of healing, which is the feminine, which is the flow. So it's how the structure relates to each other. So again, if you need to change a light bulb because your wires aren't working, and the problem is that the shape of the light bulb is incorrect, if you get the proper shaped light bulb, that's great, right? Just like if you break a bone and there's a clear fracture, you have to heal that bone, you have to heal the structure. But if all the structures are in place, right, and there's just some natural degeneration, or some of your tests are normal, and there's no brain tumor, and there's no polyp, or cyst, or cancer, or fibroid causing you to be terminal, then we need to stop looking at the structure. We need to look at the flow. So we need to look at how all the structures are related to each other. So the flow in this example of the electrical wiring of your house is how are the signals from the power source, from your electricity box, how is that flowing and channeling and communicating with all of the light bulbs in your house? And modern medicine does not have a paradigm that looks at that. And the flow of the structure of your nervous system, if you're looking at structure of your nervous system, it's brain, spinal cord, peripheral nerves. Well, if you want to get technical, it's also your brain stem. So your brain stem, your spinal cord, that's your CNS, your central nervous system, and then your peripheral nerves, so your peripheral nervous system, so these are the individual nerves that come off of the spine, and that go and they innervate different components like your organs or your muscles, and they tell your body what to do, and they allow you to feel. There's two types of nerves, motor and sensation. And so if we look at the flow of what's happening there, that's a conversation of your nervous system. That's understanding the body through, if you're speaking energetically, through a feminine flow, right? So we have to understand the electrical impulses, right? The flow of what's happening inside of the structure. It's not just the structure. Just because you don't have a tumor in your brain doesn't mean that there's not a problem. It means that you're not dying, which is great. But now that we have life and it's not life or death, now the conversation becomes about quality of life. And when we think about like masculine and feminine, when it comes to these two types of paradigms of medicine, I like to understand these two as you need each other. So let's say you're driving in a car and you're on a road trip. Like the masculine force in this example is the GPS. So it's the structure of how to get there. And then the feminine flow is going to be making sure of the frequency and the quality of the experience on the way there. So the masculine gets us there through the GPS, and the feminine might be like the playlist and the snacks and the water and the temperature and like the flow and the quality inside of that structure. So you need both. And so modern medicine helps us with the structure, the fact that we're getting there, and by getting there it means we're not dying, so survival. But now when it comes to quality of life, it's just simply not equipped. And when it comes to the quality of life, when it comes to understanding the feminine paradigm of healing, of getting better, and of advocating for more than structure, we look at the nervous system. Because the quality of how we feel in our nervous system is multifactorial. It's what's happening in our emotions, what's happening in our spirit, what's happening in our truth, what's happening in our connection to faith and God and higher intelligence there. Like, what is the quality and the nature of what's happening inside of us? Do we feel safe most of the time? Do we feel scared most of the time? Do we feel on edge most of the time? Do we feel trusting most of the time? Do we feel worried most of the time? Do we feel doubtful most of the time? Do we feel questioning most of the time? Or do we feel trusting? Do we feel supported? Do we feel guided? Do we feel protected? So all of these, you can't measure them. And modern medicine doesn't give anything quality that you can't measure. But that's just not the truth. Can you measure the love for your child? Can you measure how a song makes you feel, or how you have a sensation when you're looking at a beautiful piece of nature? Does that make it any less real? No. But modern medicine does not account for this qualitative nature to the human experience. And if we're talking about healing and we care about your experience and we want you to get better, you have to understand the nature of how you feel on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day basis. And when you've had trauma, how you feel on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day basis in your relationship with trust and with doubt and with fear and with faith and with God and with support and with safety are going to be massively dysfunctional because we've had trauma. So now, when there's a symptom like low back pain, or there's a symptom like anxiety, and they're like, here, take a pill, here's an injection, is it addressing the quality of what's happening inside, or is it just suppressing or numbing a symptom? So in order to get better, we have to acknowledge that our body works as an overarching system. It really works as this electrical wiring, right? In the house, that example that I'm giving you of electricity. And there has to be an even, unobstructed flow, and the quality of that flow matters. Is the flow like, oh my God, 911, alert, 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 alarm bells, or is it nice and flowing and consistent like a river? So the quality of that flow is going to affect your body's ability to all those light bulbs working, because it has nothing to do with the light bulbs. It has to do with the nervous system. It has to do with the wiring. So it doesn't have to do with your back. It doesn't have to do with your CSF. It doesn't have to do with your ANA markers. Like, these are all symptoms of the nature of the flow of your nervous system being stuck in a 911 alarm bell state. So if we go to the example of we're going on a road trip and the masculine is the GPS, and we have the GPS and we know where we're going, but the whole time it's 110 degrees out and the AC doesn't work and the windows, it's an old car and the windows don't go all the way down, and so you're sweating hot and you have no Wi-Fi, so you can't play Spotify or any music, and you're in the middle of nowhere and there's no snacks and you're out of water. It's like, okay, yeah, you'll get to your destination, but you're going to feel awful on the way. And so there's these little components that we have to consider when it comes to the qualitative nature of our actual experience. And this is what is required to get better. And this is opening up the paradigm of healthcare and medicine that's inviting in things that you cannot measure, like your emotions, like your purpose, like your relationship to faith, like your ability to trust, like your ability to feel abstractly. And this is trauma work, and this is somatic work. So while structure is important and it's a piece of the puzzle, it's just a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole pie. So if we want a shot at getting you better, and you can and you will get better if you heal your relationship with trust, if you decide to trust yourself, take a risk, make an investment, if you decide to commit day in and day out to the work, even when it feels hard and even when it looks like it's not working, there's a place where that exists. But we have to open up our expansion of what that means. And what that means is considering the physical body, but really understanding and reframing the physical body as a vessel that holds non-physical things, like memories, like a sense of purpose, like a sense of connection to humanity, like a sense of connection to the divine, like what you're meant to do on this world, like how you're meant to feel in this world, about prioritizing your feelings, feeling valued, feeling respected, feeling accepted, feeling a sense of belonging. You can't measure these things, but they dictate and determine the quality of your life, and they dictate and determine your ability to feel safe in your body. And your ability to feel safe in your body dictates how your nervous system functions. And when your nervous system doesn't feel safe because all of these components haven't been addressed, you're going to start having problems. You're going to start feeling depressed. You're going to start having anxiety. You're going to start having migraines. You're going to start having random fluid in your sinuses, nausea, dizziness, headaches, bloating. All of this has to be looked at. And one of the primary pieces is considering the trauma that we've repressed, that we've dismissed, that we've intellectualized, right? Oh, well, I've looked at that. I've done a lot of work on that. Have you understood it with your mind, or have you felt it in your bones, the depth of the pain that actually caused you at that age and that level of consciousness? So all of these variables, these qualitative variables, need to be considered when it comes to getting better, because it is the only way that we will get better. Is prioritizing the quality of our experience by advocating for a level of deservingness of feeling safe in our body, of prioritizing our emotions, of acknowledging that we are human with a body who feels emotions, who also has a soul that's connected to a bigger spirit. And realizing how these pieces of us have been so fragmented, of how we haven't considered what's the depth of my heart and my soul communicating to me, and am I listening, and am I honoring? Have my emotions been pushed to the side or minimized? And do I need to feel those? And do I need to consider those and acknowledge those and hold space for those? Do I need to redevelop the connection between what's happening emotionally and what's happening spiritually, and contemplate this and reunite this? When we do this work of the invisible, of the untangible, of the things that can't be measured, the physical body starts to heal on its own. The physical body responds to the quality of the electrical impulses and flow that's happening in your nervous system. And your nervous system has two modes: I'm safe or I'm not safe. Very binary in that way. And so think about all of the qualities in your life, in your past, in your present, the fears of your future, that facilitate in that sensation of not feeling safe. Until those are addressed, mind, body, spirit, nervous system won't calm down, physical symptoms won't go away. The light bulb will always be out. But when we address the pain of the past, the confusion of the present, and we pivot into hope for the future by connecting with our soul, by dealing with our emotions, and by honoring our body, Body starts to feel safe, starts to feel supported. We start to reintegrate all of these pieces of ourselves. We start to heal. So healing requires us to think in a new way, to act in a new way, to show up in a new way, to consider and give massive value to the things that we can't measure, to the things that modern medicine neglects. And one of the most profound things that we can't measure, but it's directly related to our relationship with trust and a force beyond ourselves, is listening to the nudge and the pull of what needs to happen next to heal. Of listening into what the deeper part of you is asking you to do, to trust, to invest, to take a risk, to experiment with, to venture into unknown and uncharted territories. Does that mean looking at the past? Does that mean confronting and facing things that we haven't looked at? Does that mean being massively vulnerable? Does that mean hiring someone that you feel resonance with and investing in that and knowing that you deserve the outcome on the other side of that? Does that mean time management? Does that mean financial responsibility? What does that mean? Honoring that, trusting that, and knowing that in order to get better, it requires a relationship with the invisible. It requires a relationship with your emotions, with your feelings, with your memories, with your sense of safety, with your soul. And when these parts of you are in harmony and valued and respected and considered, your nervous system will click back into safety. It will happen slowly over time until one day it's your baseline. You say, I haven't thought about my pain. I actually felt joy today. I actually felt peace. And you start to make space for these newfound sensations in the quality of your experience in your physical body every day. You feel safe again, you feel peace again, you feel joy, you feel vitality. But it happens after the obedience to the nudge, to the pull, to the risk, and to the trust in the unknown. So what are you being shown or told inside of you that you're neglecting? What invisible pieces of you, your emotions, your dreams, your intuition, have you not been honoring? What do you know needs to happen? And where can you trust more if you really took your healing seriously? So I'll leave you with that. A short and sweet training today. And I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for showing up for this, for yourself, honoring you wherever you're at in the journey, and reminding you that you deserve to heal. I will see you on the next video.